Hello and welcome to the post-match reaction to the Wallabies versus Les Bleus in Game 2. The Wallabies have come up short 26-28. The hooter had gone. France passed it back to a player, and this time he held onto it and kicked it out. He didn't fumble it, allowing the Wallabies to get a last-second win, or we've passed extra time win on this one. In the first half, the Wallabies had one thing on their mind, and that was playing with ball in hand. And they were looking to run the French off their feet. That meant that they were turning down points at several opportunities. And that also meant that France were able to build up a win through their boot, through their boot. We did have an early try to Corabetti, but it was disallowed for a knock-on by Tom Rice, who had a bit of a shocker of a game. Let's be honest. So did Matt Tamura as well. Two players who, will not look back on this game with fondness. Let's be honest from their performances. There were a couple of question marks as to how many phases back they went to review that by the TMO. But for my mind, look, the main thing about the TMO is to get the correct decision. And it was the correct decision. Elbow and downwards is a knock-on, and it was his elbow that touched the ball. The Wallabies really were playing from their own half. They were taking tap penalties rather than kicking for points or going to the corner. They really were avoiding any kind of set piece. When you think they lost one out of 3 scrums, and they lost 3 out of 10 lineouts, you can probably see why they were avoiding those penalties. But they just were not getting any points for all of that play. Eventually, they did knock over 3 to make it 3-6. But Banks came back in, had a break, and look, we had Corabetti making breaks, we had Banks making breaks, and other players as well. Those two mainly. And the problem was they just weren't getting support players, so they get tackled and then they'd get turned over, either giving up a penalty or giving up the ball. In this case, gave up the ball goes wide, Matt Tamura makes a bad read, comes in off his player, ball goes out to his player, and off he goes off to score. And it's suddenly 3-13, and the French have only been in the Wallabies 22 so that was just to run straight through it and put the ball down. It really was, and it wasn't until after the half-hour mark the French actually got phases within the Wallabies 22. And heading towards the half-time, they had that 6-16 lead, and you were just wondering, what are the Wallabies up to? Because they're playing all the rugby, hardly kicking the ball, and leaving themselves coming up short. There was a good try just before half-time for the Wallabies. Look, they were hitting up, crashing up against the French line-out, and the French try line, and you're thinking Tupu's going to pick and drive again, but no, he spots there's basically no one on the blind, but there's also no one on the blind from the Wallabies, so he pushes out Slipper and Jake Gordon, and off the back of the ruck, passes out to Jake Gordon, who scores in the corner. Not often you're going to see a prop passing to a scrum half who scores in the winger's position. Important pass. Look, I mean, lots of people were saying it was Aaron Smith pass. No, it was not a bullet pass. It wobbled a bit, but hey, what matters is that it was effective. It got to where it needed to go, and it went in for the try. In the second half, look, the Australians started initially to play out their own half again, but Tupu knocked it on. The French then really showed they were going to pick and go, and you can tell this if we compare how the play from the Wallabies compared to the France. So the Wallabies, 219 passes in this game with 161 runs. So you're looking there at what? Nearly 60 more runs, so about a third, about 30% more passes and runs. Whereas for France, 79 passes but 98 runs, so only 20 less passes than runs. Shows you how much they picked and goed in this game. And it nearly worked for them. They went all the way up to the line before they got turned over. Wallabies went down and got knocked over 3. And definitely in the second half started to take those threes more so than the first half, where they were turning them down. It was errors that really let down the Wallabies here. Look, a knock on by Wright again, fielding a kicked ball, scrum penalty, knock over 3, and suddenly what should be a safe catch and kick back for big kick tennis for territory turns into a loss of 3 points for the Wallabies, putting the French back in front. France nearly scored a try, but they lose it going over the try line. They had advantage there, so knocked over another easy 3. They were not turning down any points tonight. And with 100% kicker, in fact, both sides had 100% kickers, you can understand why the French weren't. A few penalties meant that they stretched it out to a 25 to 16 lead, so a 9-point lead. Banks made a fantastic break on the inside ball, passed tried a one-handed pass to Callaway, but the French knock it backwards. Callaway collects, pass it on to Hooper, and Hooper goes in to score in the corner. So yes, Australia led this game with 2 tries to 1, but they lost the game. Lorcia knocked it over. An offside penalty gave them a 1-point lead. But again, a big scrum by the French, and over goes 3 with a couple of minutes to spare. And at the end, France, Wallabies had the ball, a penalty, tap and go, pass it back, kick it out. Unlike last weekend, pass it back, fumble. Oh no, try and pass it to players. No messing around this weekend. Also, this game, it hasn't been weekends between it, has it? And France closed it out. Issues for the Australians? Well, look, 12 turnovers to 6. And also, they weren't able to continue that the style of play in that first half. Look, they had all the territory in the possession. Second half, started some box kicking and contestable kicks and lost all of them. Really was not a good ploy by them. It needed to either keep ball in hand or kick for territory. That box kicking was a disaster for them and really lost them some ball and territory. Other times, the execution of their lineup more just was not there. They got driven out as well. Losing 3 lineouts didn't help them, including one that was only 7 meters out from the French try line. So, that execution there from the Wallabies really poor. Really let them down, unfortunately. In this one, you've got to take your hat off though to the French. 228 successful tackles, 254 attempted tackles. That's a hell of a lot of tackling to do. They were about the 160 mark just after half time. And that's what I mean about Australia not being able to continue their game plan in that second half. They weren't able to keep hold of the ball, to keep tiring out this French side. And it just was that territory thing. Dropping those kicks really did hurt them in that one. So congratulations to France. You just some of the player stats around the defence is absolutely nuts. Vincent in the 13 jersey, 25 tackles leading the way there. He missed a couple, but hey, if you're making 25, you're allowed to miss a couple. Jalosh, the number 8, 23 tackles. Also, Diallo, the number 6, also 23 tackles as well. 20 for Chavot, the lock. Waki, the number 7, who had a great game, also stole lineouts, 15 tackles from him. So some real big shifts there. Salaka Lotto with 16 was the top tackler for the Wallabies. And when you look at that and see that Alan Alatoa, who came on in the second half, made 10 tackles, shows you, and whereas Tupu only made 6, shows you how much of the tackling that the Wallabies had to do in the second half, but very little in that first, because they kept hold of the ball there with that one. Clean breaks covered by Corabetti. He had a really good game. Hunter by Sami also got one, also for Banks there. Nasrani also came on, played well yet again. That's 2 games on the trot. We've seen him come on Yeah, Tom Wright, Matsumura, really, I can't see them getting selected this coming weekend. Kellaway, again, another decent outing for him in this one for the Wallabies. Loliseo sort of gaining in confidence in that one. At least we didn't see at the beginning of this one by the Wallabies that they were up to speed, whereas last game they really weren't up to weren't ready for the physicality and the pace of international rugby. At least they or Test rugby. At least they were this time. So congratulations to France, stuck in this one, took their points whenever they were on offer. For Australia, look, decision making around when to take your threes. It's important, you know. France gave up 12 penalties, as did Australia. So it wasn't that Australia gave up more penalties, allowing France more kicks. It was just purely that the France always decided to take those points when they were on offer. Australia didn't. Clearly had a game plan around that, and it didn't work out, and they weren't able to sustain it, which I think is kind of the big one there. Thank you very much for joining me. It's late. Time to hit the sack and to get some sleep, and looking forward to the rugby this coming weekend.